Ambeti washte, metakwape. I said, today is a good day, my friends, my relatives. But it gets darker as I've watched your President Obama make his inaugural speech. And what I've gleaned by going over it on the internet, in part, this is what is truth. It's why we are the Palestinians of America. We cannot help but believe that the old hatred shall someday pass, that the lines of tribes shall soon dissolve, that as the world grows smaller, our common humanity shall reveal itself. The lines of tribes shall dissolve. That means he's getting rid of our sovereignty, our reservations. That's what that means. You have to listen carefully in his phraseology. It's not unlike other charismatic leaders in the past. Now what we see here is what Obama and the United States of America intends, the final solution to the American Indians of the United States of America. In 1807, Jefferson so stated that if ever we are constrained to lift the hatchet against any tribe, we will never lay it down till that tribe is exterminated or driven beyond the Mississippi. In war they will kill some of us, but we shall destroy them all. The Indian problem. The interaction between the Indians and the Europeans was what Helen Hunt Jackson described with the title of her brave 1881 book, A Century of Dishonor. Besides periodic warfare, scalp bounties, general encroachment, and deliberate dispensing of liquor and disease, the Indians were being what was most systematically disposed of by whatever means possible. That the Indian problem had to be dealt with was something known even by the earliest citizens and leaders. George Washington in 1779 instructed a general to attack the Iroquois and make sure that he lay waste to all settlements around, that the country may not be merely overrun but destroyed, and not to listen to any overture of peace before the total ruin of their settlements is effected. This is not merely a call for punishing supposed raids or other depredations, but an act of total war aimed at extermination of the tribe, the nation. Removal. In 1830, the Indian Removal Act was pushed through Congress by Andrew Jackson, who was challenging and disobeying a Supreme Court edict and the law, and so was Congress. And he had said the whole Cherokee Nation ought to be scourged, and bragged that he had on all occasions preserved the scalps of my killed. It gave the government a pretense and legal way to have the military remove most of the Indian tribes to Indian country, those that were not massacred, west of the Mississippi, much of which later became the state of Oklahoma. Thousands died in transit due to disease, exposure, malnutrition, and enforced marches, and where there were some cases of rebellion and attempts to escape, they were annihilated. It also brought a burden to the Indians who were already living there in Oklahoma. In the middle of the century, the government began carving up the land and portioning it out for the Indians, land that was already theirs by right and habitation, and by treaty and backed by the Constitution of the United States. Indians were being put onto a reservation where they only had the freedom that the government and often greedy and duplicitous Indian agents allowed them. Also, they were forcefully and purposefully starved, and some, rather than starve, fought. The Sioux, the Great Sioux Nation, was given a choice: sell their holy land, the Black Hills of South Dakota, or starve. We chose to starve. Thomas Jefferson stated in 1807, the U.S. should pursue the Indians into extermination. Andrew Jackson had supervised the mutilation of 800 or so Creek Indian corpses, the bodies of men, women, and children that he and his men had massacred, who, after his presidency was over, he still recommended that American troops specifically seek out and systematically kill Indian women and children who were hiding. Page 313. Indians are us. Theodore Roosevelt, referring to a massacre of between 150 to 300 women and children peacefully encamped and supposedly under government protection, stated, as righteous and beneficial a deed as ever took place on the frontier. Go get him, Teddy. General Philip Sheridan's 1869 observation that the only good Indians I ever saw were dead was morphed into the only good Indian is a dead Indian. A common cry on the frontier in the plains where my people lived. The Indians at Wounded Knee who were massacred were actually prisoners of war, taken the day before above what is now the hamlet of Porcupine on the Pine Ridge Sioux Indian Reservation. Taken there and disarmed, and then made to camp at Wounded Knee in a bowl surrounded by hills where Hotchkiss guns were placed. The Hotchkiss guns was a rapid-firing machine gun, a brand new one, had never been used, ever. And so they really wanted to practice on someone. And it was my people they did it with. Those Hotchkiss guns was a rotating barrel that fired in machine gun fashion, exploding shells. When they hit you, they exploded. It was a new type of vicious, very vicious, patriarchal warfare. These unarmed prisoners of war that were massacred by the 7th Cavalry. There were 20 Medals of Honor awarded. Not only that, but this is the most Medals of Honor ever awarded than any other military action in American history. Killing defenseless women and children and old people. You got the Medal of Honor as long as they were Indian people. My people. And then a snowstorm hit. That's two things. Because what you're